What?
I don't see anything up yet, but you should be live, so he's working on it.
Okay. My name is Caroline Croning, and I'm here with Jeff Stearns, and we are here to do a series of readings from the book from Joe Crane to continue our videos for this channel. To do a series is going to be that we're reading is readings from the book from Joe Crane. It's going to be a series of 8 videos, maybe 10. Just we'll see how it goes. But we are going to read the book for those of you who don't like to read, like some people. So we're going to make it real easy for you. And Jeff and I are going to start with the preface and then chapter 1 and chapter 2 today of the book, Blessings, Gifts, and Deeds. So, Jeff, do you have anything else to add for this?
No, I don't like to read, and I'm reading. But anyway, yeah, okay. we're gonna go over 1 and 2 and just read them just like it's written, and then we're gonna give you our feedback, like after chapter 1, how it affected us.
Right. So, all right, the preface. What you are about to read is a true account of a visitation by an angel. It is unlike anything you have read. I believe it is, or at least I know for sure I haven't read anything like this before. Imagine what it would be like to have an angel appear and bring good news for a change. The last time something like this happened was about 2,000 years ago. Again, a message is given of God's unconditional love for all. God sees you as perfect, whole, and complete, just the way you are. A new baptism is given that opens a direct line to God that you may be unaware of. The pages of this book hold the secret of building your mansion in heaven. Within these pages, you will find a builder's manual called the Book of Bricks, which describes the how-to in creating your mansion brick by brick. You will also find this to be, at times, a humorous journey, though through a year-long conversation between the angel Michael and me. Michael speaks of things I must do and teach, even though I think he has the wrong man for the job. He talks about 7 people that will become masters. They will teach 7 others, who in turn will teach 7 more, and so on and so on. Open your heart and mind so that your soul will be filled with God's love. Writing this book has opened a relationship with God I never dreamed possible. I only hope that in reading this book, your relationship takes the quantum leap that mine has. Bless your heart. So that's the preface.
Okay, chapter 1, Teach Only Love. Christmas is the time when most Christians remember the birth of Jesus. It seems strange that he was born in the spring, yet we still celebrate his birth in December. Having been touched by the story of his birth one more time this year, I decided to read the Bible. Many years had passed since I have had one to read, so I figured it was time to get one. You need to know that this was only for my own knowledge. I'm not a member of any religion. I don't go to church on Sunday, but I do believe in God. I also pray asking for God's guidance and have for many years. Each night I laid in bed and read the Bible, chapter and verse. I would go over what I had read on the following day. Some of it made sense and some of it did not. After 3 or 4 weeks of reading, I asked God to help me understand the real message. The next night I went to bed, took out the Bible, and began reading again. It was around midnight when I closed my Bible and set it on the nightstand. Looking over at my sleeping wife, I thought, what a beautiful woman I married. I noticed our 4 mastiffs, 2 on the bed and the others on the floor. Whatever I have done to be so blessed with such a lovely family, I said to myself as I reached over to turn off the light and kiss Donna goodnight. Putting my head on the pillow, I settled in, pulling the covers over my shoulders. Feeling the warmth of the waterbed relax my body, I slowly began drifting off to that place where we just before we go to sleep, when our minds are clear of all thought. Joe, a voice said. Joe, the voice said again. I was now fully awake, trying to decide what course of action to take, for this was not the first time something like this had happened to me. On 3 other occasions, as far back as 10 years ago, I had heard this voice. I always thought it was my roommate calling, but each time when I woke them to ask them what they wanted, they told me they hadn't called me. Once I was home alone when I heard my name called. I got out of bed and went to the door, thinking it was someone outside, but no one was there. I told my friend Alexander Everett about my experiences, and he asked me if I was familiar with the story of Samuel. I had heard the story before, but could not remember any specifics. Samuel was in the spiritual tutoring of a master named Eli. One night, Samuel went to bed, and before dawn, he heard a voice call, Samuel, Samuel. So he got up, went to Eli, and asked him what he wanted. Eli told him, I didn't call you, go back to bed. Samuel did so. But again he heard, Samuel, Samuel. So off to Eli he went, only to be told, I didn't call you, go back to bed. The third time he heard Samuel, Samuel, he went to Eli and said, here I am, for you called me. Eli realized that the Lord must be the one calling Samuel. Eli instructed Samuel to go back to bed and told him if he was called again to say, speak, Lord, for your servant hears. Samuel did what he was told, and the Lord spoke to him. So Joe, Alexander said, the next time you hear your name called, say, speak, Lord, for your servant hears, and see what happens. God just may have something to say to you. By this time, I had serious doubts. Oh, sure, I thought with all the people in the world to talk to, God is going to talk to me. Why me? What does he want from me? I really hope it is not that I am supposed to do something. Maybe I am just hearing things, or maybe I'm going crazy. Okay, I thought, let's go for it. What's the worst that could happen? I might feel like a fool, and then I'll go to sleep and forget all about it in the morning. So I said, speak, Lord, for your servant hears. There was no reply. I saw a pinpoint of light in the doorway. It looked like a piece of glitter on black velvet, hit by blinding white light. It began to grow. Oh boy, I thought, I'm in big trouble now. Why did I ever start this? The light was beginning to fill the doorway. As it did, it was becoming a bright yet soft blue-white and spilled onto the walls, illuminating the room. If this is a dream, I thought, then the dogs are having it too, because each one has his head up looking in the same direction that I am. And I guess it must be okay, or at least 700 pounds of muscle, teeth, and loyalty seem to think so. If the dogs aren't afraid, I'm not either. Not much anyway. Maybe if I just sit still, whatever it is won't see me, I thought. Better yet, if I just pull the covers over my head, it won't find me and will go away. I didn't do either one. I just sat there with my mouth open, waiting to see what would happen next. I looked over to see if the dogs were going to save me from whatever this was. They weren't. It looked like someone was coming from far back in the light, moving closer, and yet already here. At first, the eyes were all I noticed. They were blue, unlike any blue I had ever seen before. Kind and gentle are the only words to describe those eyes. I felt at peace as I saw the figure more clearly. I had long platinum blonde hair and alabaster skin, covered in a white robe. It was smiling at us. The figure spoke in a masculine voice. It struck me as odd that someone so beautiful would appear to be male. Put down your books, for they hold no truth for you, he said. As the sands of the desert have been moved to suit the winds of time, so has the light been darkened by man's ink on the pages. This you must do, or you will not be called upon again. Teach this which Lord God has charged me to give you, for it is the last baptism of God's children. Have those you teach in turn teach others, for they are well-meaning in their houses of God. You are not a Christ or even a prophet, but a servant of God, who will put words in your mouth, and God's children will hear and understand. Take a jug of wine before sunrise and pour it into a bowl. Set this bowl in the sun's path so the light will warm it. Fast and be still until the sun is at its highest place in the sky. At the time, go to where the bowl has been laid on the ground and remove your shoes, for you stand on holy ground. Sit and wash your feet from your toes to your knees so that you may stand and walk the earth. Wash your hands from the tips of your fingers to the elbows so you may do God's work. When this is done, kneel and say, My loving Father, your child has come home to your counsel. Guide me in all things that I must do. Then take up the bowl of wine and pour it on the ground, as your mother earth drinks the unclean liquid. All that is unclean with you, his brothers and sisters, is absolved, just as the blood of God's Son was said to do. Go now, be at peace, and take care of that which I have given you. Teach only love. After you do this, we will speak again. With that, he stepped into the light and faded away as the dogs and I watched. I got out of bed, went to the dining room, pulled out some paper, and wrote down what he had told me, word for word. 2 days later, I told my wife, and she asked me what I was going to do. All I could say was, I don't know. It's not every day an angel comes to me and tells me something this profound, let alone wants me to do and teach this last baptism thing. Why on earth would anyone want to listen to me? It is a good thing that churches don't burn people at the stake anymore, I thought. At least I don't think they do. I called Alexander again to tell him what had taken place and that this was a little frightening to me. Alexander is one of the most spiritual people I have ever met. I went to a class he was teaching about 10 years ago called Inward Bound. I had never seen or met a master before, but from the first moment I saw him, I knew he was just that. Over the years, I have attended many of his classes and got to know him quite well. If I could talk to anyone about this, it would be him. Alexander told me that I had had a vision. I knew that vaguely, but what I really wanted to know was, why me? It seems to me that there are a lot of people in this world who have much closer relationship with God than I do. People like Alexander have spent their entire lives teaching spiritual truths. Why didn't the angel go to them? But Alexander told me some people wait all their lives to have such a thing happen. I should be grateful for having been chosen to serve in a grand plan. He also told me I would most likely hear from the angel again. I knew he was going to say that. He told me that I shouldn't be frightened at what had happened and to be open to whatever I was told by the angel. He asked me to let him know from time to time what was happening. I agreed. It was nice to know that he didn't think I was insane. It was even nicer to know that I didn't think I was insane either. Still, it was no comfort for me to think that I was on some kind of mission from God. So I figured that whatever God wanted me to do, he would give me a sign for when and how to do it. The next day, my doorbell rang. There were 2 nicely dressed people standing there, wanting with all their hearts to tell me of God's love for me. Was this some kind of sign or what? If anyone wanted to listen to my story of the angel, I thought surely it would be someone whose whole life is about God. I listened to what they had to say about God for a while, and then I proceeded to tell them what had happened to me. I showed them the baptism I had written down. I felt like a little child giving a gift that was the most special thing in the whole world. I was wrong. By the time these nicely dressed people had left my door, I had been told it was Satan who had come to me trying to steal my soul and that I would burn in hell forever. My son would grow up to be an antichrist, just like it said in the Bible. Armageddon would be my fault. They didn't want to hear that I have no children, let alone a son. I was crushed by their rejection, almost to the point of tears. How is it that something as beautiful as this could be understood as the work of the devil? So much for whom I thought would listen. The next time I talk to this angel, I vowed to myself, he will have some questions to answer, which brings me to the second visit. However, it was not the angel I first saw. I did not rush out the first chance I got to do the baptism. I wanted to think about it before I did anything. While I was thinking about it, I had a visit from someone else. I was lying on the sofa watching an old movie on television. Annie, my female mastiff, was sharing the sofa with me, her head resting on my shoulder. Annie raised her head up, back, as if on alert. She looked toward the hallway, and so did I. Thinking it was Donna, I waited to see her come through the doorway. I saw a light move along the wall as if someone had a flashlight and was coming back of the house. Oh, it must be the angel again, I thought. A man I had not seen before came out of the hall and stopped just outside of the doorway. Who in the hell is this? I said to myself. He stood about 6 feet tall. He was thin as a rail. Long white hair surrounded a strong, determined face. The thick, bushy set of eyebrows above his deep brown eyes made him look as if he were angry about something. The robe he wore hung to the floor with baggy sleeves and a hood. Given the way he dressed and his apparent attitude, he appeared to be a monk who was quite mad. Looking at me, he shook his head and walked through the dining room into the kitchen, mumbling about something. I looked at Annie and she looked at me as if we were asking each other, what just happened? He came out of the kitchen, still shaking his head as he looked down at the floor. He walked across the dining room and went through the glass patio door, which was closed. He stood there shaking his head and talking to himself. I looked back over at the dog. Yes, indeed, I said to Annie, this boy is wrapped too tight and crazy as a pet coon with rabies. The angel never said anything about this. Is this going to be like Dickens, where I get visited by 3 ghosts or what? Once again, through the glass door, he came and stopped in the middle of the dining room. He looked straight at me and then down at the floor. As he raised his head, I could see a calmness had come over him as he started to speak. You people have been told from the very beginning, he said in a soft, slow voice, as if to make sure what he was saying was clear. Over the centuries, you have been told in a gentle way. So have you been told in a mighty way of God's love for you. Do you hear it? He had a stern voice that got more forceful as he continued to speak without waiting for an answer. You people have been given the wonders of the universe, including the world on which you live. Do you say, blessed are we? God loves us so much that he gives us all this. Do you say, brothers and sisters, we may live long to care for one another? Our happiness and well-being are great with God? No, he said in a resounding voice that almost shook the room. You people would rather frighten each other with the stories of an angry God that will lay waste to all who do not obey. You get pleasure from thinking of all the horrendous ways your enemies will be made to suffer. You listen to someone expound for hours about how you are a sinner. They tell you God will forgive you if you believe and do as they do. Some are so self-righteous, they believe that only they are worthy to enter paradise. They carry the lie to their brothers and sisters, saying, if you believe as we, you will be saved. Waving his arms in the air, he walked about the room almost yelling. He must have learned this from some of the evangelists I have seen on television, I thought. When most of you pray, do you ask for guidance? No, all that is asked for are things you want. Oh, Heavenly Father, please make me worthy Make the world a better place for me and mine. Help me teach the sinners so as they may be in heaven with me. Or you try to bargain with God. If you do this for me, I will do that for you. Some try to buy their way into heaven by giving money to their church or the poor. I have seen this when I walk the earth. The killing of animals and the burning of their bodies for sacrifice, or paying someone else to do it for them. Thousands of years have passed since then, and still only few have heard. People have always sat and wondered why I rant and rave the way I do. It is beyond my realm of knowing why so much time is wasted on all the pettiness. If only you truly knew of God's love, you will learn. I promise you will learn. He dropped his hands to his side, bowed his head, turned around, walked through the glass door, and was gone. The next time I see the angel, I think I'll ask him who this mad monk is. This is why these first two chapters is why this book really grabbed me. It was like if Angel Michael was talking to me. I mean, I believed all this, and I didn't know, why I did. I never, just like Joe said, I didn't believe in organized religion, but I believed in God. But when I read the first one where it said, I've put down your books, they will hold no truth for you. And as I said in my video, I was hooked. And I could just imagine that, just like, think about an angel visiting you and you're like a little kid and you want to tell somebody, and then he gets these guys coming to his door. I think it was a test. And, he's excited to tell them about it. And they say, oh, no, that was Satan. And that's the way what we'll learn in chapter 2 is fear has been controlling us. And Isaac, everything that he said is, that we've been given to, but no, we choose, unfortunately, that's what some of us have been chose to learn at Sunday school. That's why I'll say I've had debated discussions about how that stuff never resonated with me. And they just said, man, you're nuts. And I said, it just doesn't make sense to me. And I didn't know then, but I do know now. So when I read this book, I go, I was on the right track. So I was really excited with that. And, everything that they said. So, that's why I was hooked right then. I go, wow, this book is really, I believe everything that the angel. So I go, I was on the right track. So how did it affect you?
Yeah, that part about put down your books for they hold no truth for you really resonated with me as well. Because I felt like that a lot of the things that were written and rewritten and rewritten and rewritten were done so that they could control people through fear. And so it just a lot of it is true, yeah, and a lot of it is I felt like it wasn't accurate. So that really resonated with me too. And then Jeff, I was going to ask you, how did you feel after you did your last baptism?
The baptism?
Yeah.
Well, after I wanted to do it. When I saw that, I go, yeah, for some reason, I was excited. I finished the book, but I said, yeah, I'm going to do this. How I felt was, and this was all new to me, but I felt I was actually on my first step on my path to knowing why I'm on this planet, because I used to ask myself that. And my whole way of thinking is I went from the me mentality, which we've kind of been programmed in the matrix or whatever, and I went to servant mentality.
From the me mentality to servant.
Yeah. So that's what really changed after I did the baptism.
Well, for me, I grew up in as a Catholic, and I was very entrenched in the religion. And so you couldn't talk to God. You would have to go through the priest, when you wanted to, you had confession. So it was almost like, well, you're not good enough to talk to God. You can talk to God through this guy. And that really bothered me because I thought, well, why don't I just talk to God? So when he talked about the last baptism, he said, You say, my loving Father, your child has come home to your counsel. Guide me in all things that I must do." So what happened with that was I really felt a lifting. And I felt like I opened up my cell phone to God. It was really interesting. Excuse me. So it really I felt lighter, and I felt like, that's my dog. I felt like I actually opened up the telephone line. So it was really nice.
Yeah, I
Um,
did too. I felt lighter too. Like I knew everything was going to be okay. Like I said, that was the first step, and I knew now I'm on my path.
yeah, that's
And I
awesome.
wasn't, organized religion. That, like I said, I used to have debates. I go, I don't buy all that. They'd just call me nuts.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Should we go on to
Okay, you
chapter
ready for chapter 2?
chapter 2? Write it down, for it is important. I was still thinking about doing the baptism a month later. During this time, there was no angel, no monk, no anything. Donna kept asking if I had seen the angel again, but I hadn't. Then one night, Donna set the alarm clock to wake us up before sunrise and placed a bottle of wine and 2 bowls on the table by the door. "Let's do the baptism in the morning," she said. I was glad she brought it up. We don't normally eat breakfast until late morning, but since I needed to fast before doing the baptism, I wanted to eat something. Because I needed to be still until the sun reached its highest point in the sky, I started thinking that I should have done this back in January, when the days were shorter and I didn't have to be still for so long. Well, I could see now that all this waiting does is cause more waiting. I put it off for as long as I could because I didn't want to find out what was next. Did I want to? Well, to be honest, I was a little afraid. My life was going along just fine, and I didn't need any angel coming around to mess it up. What if this angel tells me I have to give up my wife, and my dogs, and my home, and everything else I've worked so hard for? How do you tell an angel? If it comes to Donna and the dogs, he will have to find someone else. It has taken me 48 years to get here, and I don't want to have to give it up. That's when I began thinking that God would not have given me all this just to take it away. God is going to do with me what God is going to do, whether I like it or not. Besides, if I can learn to like spinach, I can learn to like whatever God has in store for me. We went out in the backyard to do the baptism. I was glad we had a 6-foot fence around it because I didn't want the neighbors seeing what was going on. Only a nut would go out in his backyard, pour wine into a bowl, and wash his feet and hands with it. The whole thing kept sounding pretty lame to me, but that's just what we did. When we were done, we picked up everything and started into the house. Donna asked me, "What now?" I told her, "I don't know, but I'm getting a splitting headache." Donna told me later she was driving home after work and thinking about the baptism. She was wondering when she was going to be told what to do with her life. It wasn't like a thought or an idea that came to her. She didn't hear words as in a conversation, but she did hear very clearly, "What makes you think that I am going to tell you?" She understood that she would be guided or shown what to do. Donna was very clear about what she heard and what it meant. She doesn't question it now or need more information to be satisfied with it. I know something has changed in her. Donna has a master's of business administration degree with a very strong background in statistics. It is very unusual for her to accept the answer she was given and let it go at that. If she makes a plan for us to go on vacation, she has a contingency plan just in case and a contingency plan for her contingency plan. No stone is left unturned, no T is left uncrossed, no I is left undotted when she is looking for something. A few days after doing the baptism, I was sitting in the backyard watching the waterfall in my lily pond when the angel I had first seen in the doorway of my bedroom came to visit again. This time, he was not as dramatic as before. I would like to tell you that he came rising out of the water and stood in the middle of the pond, but it didn't happen like that. He was just there. All I could get out of my mouth was, "Who's this crazy man?" I started to tell him about what had happened when God's children came to my door. Then he cut me short. "It is Isaac, and he is one with God. A very long time ago, he was a prophet that walked the earth. So great in the understanding of God's love is he, that when he left the earth as its teacher, God gave him leave to return. Isaac has visited many people over the centuries. Several in your time has he spoken to, but most of them have run to their ministers saying that they had seen the devil and were afraid of him. For the unenlightened, he is truly a frightening sight to behold. Joe, I am going to speak plainly so you will have no misunderstanding. First of all, if you think every time you open your mouth, all will listen and hear the words, you are as crazy as you think you are. Point taken? Point well taken, I said, but I have a few 100,000 questions to ask, okay? Before I could ask, he said, I am from the Lord God, and my name you could not pronounce if I told you. He did tell me. As beautiful as the sound of his name was, I could not get it out of my mouth. He said I could call him whatever I wanted. I chose Michael and asked, what is the name of the one who sent you? I knew that was a mistake. One look at his face told me it was a very big mistake. With all the authority there is put together, he said, no one that walks the earth or breathes the air may know God's name, for if they did and spoke it once, they would not live long enough to finish. Many claim to, but none actually do, and this is true. If you are asked who you are sent by, you say, I am has sent me. Once again, he knew what I was about to ask before it came out of my mouth. Hell is a dump outside of Jerusalem where trash was burned and not a place for damned souls. God loves all his children and would not do that to any of them. Jesus, after seeing how poor in spirit man was, said if he could, he would cast the unenlightened into it forever. Out of this came the story of, if you do not follow God's law, you will go to hell. Fear will make the disobedient flock of a church obey. What about the devil? I thought. Satan is someone Moses made up in the book of Genesis only to explain the power of God. Man, in his great wisdom, found it useful to blame an unseen force rather than take responsibility for the things he did. Man thinks in terms of greater than or less than, as though there is a hierarchy, when in fact there is only God as everything. This is all well and fine. I know what you are saying, but what does this have to do with me? I am not a member of any church. All I do is ask for guidance in God's will for me. Am I to start a new church or religion? Because if I am, I can tell you I am not the man for the job, I said. No one is ever the man or the woman for the job. They always say that, and some will even suggest someone who they think is just perfect for it. That's too bad because that was going to be my next move, I said. I know, Michael said. Starting another church will serve no useful purpose and will only confuse people more than they already are. So over the next 2 years, you will be told of God's will for his children. And in this time, you will choose 3 women and 4 men to take this message out into the world. They will know you and you them. Out of the 7, 3 will be what you call gay. Excuse me, hold on there just a minute. Let me get this straight. Not that I have anything against gay people. I can tell you right now the churches are going to have a field day with this. Just in case you haven't been keeping up on the current events, the church says that being gay is a sin and forbids it. Do you have any idea what they're going to have to say about this? My God, Michael, it is going to be hard enough. I mean, that would be like me telling the churches to sell all they own and give it to the poor. I knew you were the right man for the job. You are beginning to know that, which I have not told you yet, Besides, God doesn't care what they think. Why should you? Let them forbid what they will. Let them be selective with whomever it is let into their houses. God is not limited in his love and will not deny the kingdom to anyone. Great, I thought. I will probably get nailed to a cross or burned at the stake. Not as a Christ to be remembered, but as a troublemaker who will serve as an example of what happens to such a person. My time is over for now. Think about what I have said. Write it down, for it is important. Bless your heart. So, Jeff.
Yeah, that just, it just cemented of where we were going with the first thing, especially with, he knew what he was going to say before he said it. And that's when I was going, I could just be in Joe's place, especially when, he started talking about things that never made sense to me, like organized religion, because, like they had said that, if you don't believe in Jesus Christ, you're not going to heaven, and, his way. And then the Catholic Church said, well, if you don't believe in Mother Mary to lead you there too, yeah, you're not going to get there. And they had all these rules, and it just came down and like where he just blew it out of the water, like said, hell was a dump outside. It was just a dump where they burned trash, just like they do now. And Jesus was a little ticked off with knowing how our souls were in the shape they were. He said, yeah, I ought to cast you all out in there. And how they twisted it around. And now the fear that they put in us, that you're going to spend all eternity in, hell and damnation. And wow, it just started coming together that I was so excited that I said, I was on the right path and I didn't know anything about anything. I would, like I said, I'd have debated conversations with people that really followed the Bible. And I said, that's more confusing than, trying to remember the phone book. And I said, that can't be right. So I was really excited. And then the same thing about, Satan and things like that. So.
Well, and then the part where he says, if you don't believe as I do, you're going to hell. And Michael answered him and said, God is not limited in his love and will not deny the kingdom to anyone. So that is really amazing, because I always wondered, what if you didn't hear about Jesus and you lived in Africa or you lived in Australia and you never heard about him? Why would God damn those souls? That didn't make sense to me. So it always, so when I read that part, it really resonated with me. I thought, you know what? That really makes sense. That's a loving God. That's not a fearing God. It's
right.
So that was really that really connected with me when Michael said that. I thought that really makes sense and it resonated. So I was hooked.
Me too. And his message is love. It's not like a specific thing. That's what was coming through the pages. That's what I really like, just what you just said, that, he's not going to deny anybody. Because, like I said, that never made sense. Really, I think Christians, they think that Judaism, that, if they don't believe that he was the Messiah, so they don't think they're going to get. And I said, does that make sense? All those people? And God was, Jesus was a Jew. It just never made sense. And so when I was reading this, I was really excited. I said, I was on the right path and I didn't know anything. So, yeah. And I really liked the part about what Joe, about the gay. I could just see that going, they're going to nail me to the cross. Are you kidding me? Remember the AIDS epidemic when all these evangelists, they were going, this is God smiting all those, that's why they're getting this, because they're gay. Which was totally false, but it was a fear. And I started going, wow, I'd be thinking the same thing.
Exactly.
Talk about trying to go up a hill, what you're asking me to do with an anchor on my back. And, the thing of it is, like I told you, when I started going into servant mentality after that, I started doing things. And he said, God doesn't care what they think. Why should you?
Right. Right.
And that really, and that, like I said, these first 2 chapters, then that was it. I read this book in less than a day after that. I knew I was on the right path.
Yeah. So
And
that's
I could
chapter,
totally relate with what Joe was thinking. I mean, I was laughing. That's why it was so funny.
yeah.
Because I'd be doing the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Like they're gonna they're gonna send me to the funny farm if I do this, or
Oh, well, yeah, they nail you to a cross, like he said. I mean,
yeah,
look what they were saying about that.
yeah. So those first 2 chapters were really impressive. I mean, they impressed me upon me to continue reading, and with the resignation, it just felt like everything I had always thought since I was a little kid. So it just really it hit me. So we're going to continue with this book. We're going to finish the book on video. We're going to do 1 or 2 chapters each time. And for the next chapter, chapter 3, we're going to have a surprise guest. And we'll let you all know who that is when it comes.
Yep.
When it comes. So, do you have anything else to add, Jeff?
No, that we want to get through this book, and we figure we have to do this like every 2 weeks. So we were going to do it monthly, but we looked and we said, yeah, as long as it takes. So we're going to get it done. And we also want to have some different guests on, especially I definitely want to talk about with what the profound effect that, getting the angels in last year's conference and how that people are doing with that. So we're definitely going to spend a whole hour on that.
Yeah, which is absolutely fabulous. So,
Yeah.
So stay tuned for chapter 3 of Blessings, Gifts, and Deeds. And I believe that's all we have.
That's it.
Thanks.
Thanks
And
for
thanks
tuning
everybody
in.
for
We're
sharing.
grateful. And if
Share
you got
this-
any questions, let's see if anybody has any questions. They might have some.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Little Q&A. You just go in that box in the bottom if you're on there live, and you can just type in your questions. And then if you're watching this on a replay too, you can, just type it in comments, and we'll
And you can
answer it as soon as we can get it.
Right. You can still type in questions at a later time. And this
Yeah.
is for those of us who don't like to read but want to watch videos and get it a little bit easier than if you can't access the book, or if you just don't like to read.
Yeah,
So-
that would have been me. I wish this would have been going on and I would have had to read it. But nah, I really love this book. I don't like reading, but this really talked to me. So
Anybody, any questions? Yeah.
you see them?
Eliona's checking, right? I'm assuming she is.
Yeah, I just got a full screen. I don't know how to get to it. I guess I should have figured that one out.
Okay. Well, I guess we can sign off and we can answer
Good.
questions after. And we'll see you next time with chapter 3. And everyone have a great day.
Yeah, and if you haven't watched the first video, I'd recommend watching it from the author, because it came, straight from, so to speak, the horse's mouth.
Yeah.
And he explains basically the first 2 chapters like that. So you can see how it was with him.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff.
Joe Issel. Thank you.
All right.
Night.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.